Hello, world. It's February 2021, and I hope you're all doing well. This is the first video content that I've ever released, so if it's not the quality you're used to seeing, I apologize. I'm going to warn you up front that this video contains content that many will consider strange, shocking, or just downright unbelievable. But I would ask you to watch the entire video, verify the data I'm presenting is factual, and make your own decision about it. And where to begin? So in March of 2020, almost a year ago, I led a Bible study at a local church of about 20 people, and I was in the middle of writing a lesson to present about a possible connection between the coronavirus and abortion that I saw. That day, a friend of mine suffered a serious ailment that was thought to be a stroke and was rushed to the hospital. And so I did what any Christian friend would do, and I prayed for him. Now, I was sitting up in bed and praying for a good while, and I did what most people do when they pray in bed. I fell asleep. After an unknown period of time, I heard a loud, audible voice in my head that simply said, 2 Chronicles 13 and 14. And I immediately woke up. Now, I've read through the Bible a couple of times, but I had no idea what was in those chapters. I encourage you to read those chapters for yourselves, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Now, there's a civil war going on at this time within the nation of Israel, which was divided into a northern kingdom, which is called Israel, and the southern one, which was called Judah. Now, when they had split, Israel set up 2 golden calf idols for their people to worship so they wouldn't have to go down to Jerusalem, because they didn't want their loyalty divided. So there's this terrible strife and division in the country. So the 2 nations, they gather for war. They have this civil war. Judah is vastly outnumbered. And they get surrounded by Israel, and their destruction is almost assured. And in their distress, they cry out to God. When they cried out, God delivered them. And this is the key, I think. 500,000 men of Israel were slain that day. So after reading and studying this chapter, I came to the conclusion that the message I received was that from God, was that America today is like what Israel was back then. We were once faithful, but have since turned from God and our Christian heritage to idolatry and pride. And I believe that God would judge us for our greatest sin, which was abortion, with the death of at least 500,000 of our people, mirroring what happened to idolatrous Israel. Now, my initial reaction to this was, wow, my mind was blown. That is far out. But then it occurred to me that if this was true, 500,000 of my fellow Americans were going to die. After this reality struck me in March of 2020, almost a year ago, I actually went in my bedroom and I mourned for the loss of life that was to come, that we're experiencing today. Now, however, God nearly always provides a way out of coming judgment, and I believed that if we repented of our greatest national sin, which is abortion, God would miraculously and quickly deliver us from the virus. So did we repent? On the contrary, we doubled down on abortion. Some states passing legislation that allowed termination after live birth. And also many states designating abortion as essential care so that they could continue during the pandemic, although most other surgeries were postponed because of it. So what was I supposed to do? I wrote a document explaining what I believe would happen. I sent it to an email list of dozens of people, among whom are doctors, lawyers, prominent individuals of our community that can testify that it was sent out when I claimed and that the info has not been altered. I also published the contents as public domain, posted it on our Deep Facebook page. You can find a link to the original post in the description below. And I encourage you to read it for yourself. In the Word document that I emailed out, I actually highlighted and bolded the 500,000 number because I was convinced that it would come to pass. I even sent the document to one of those prophecy news sites, prophecynewswatch.com. But apparently it was too crazy even for them, and I never heard back. So yesterday, or the day before, it was just announced that we had reached that terrible 500,000 death milestone. And while it may not seem all that surprising now, after living through a year of the pandemic, you have to understand this paper was written in March of 2020. I invite you to go to Wikipedia for a reminder. According to them, the total deaths in the U.S. at the end of March was only about 3,000 people. Remember all the pundits that suggested this was going to be no worse than the annual flu, and that it would be over by summer? If I recall correctly, the total estimated loss of life at that time was around 10 to 15,000 people, similar to what was experienced in the swine flu epidemic of 2009. No one in their right mind imagined that the death toll would be even close to what we're seeing today. When I posted my prediction to Facebook, it received not one like, not one share. That means that not even my family and close friends believed it, probably because the number seems so ludicrous. It was literally unbelievable. So why am I making this video? So I can gloat and say, I told you so. Now, it's tempting, but no. It's because this prophecy follows the pattern of biblical prophecy. And what do I mean by that? In the Bible, you'll notice that when most prophecy is given, there's a short-term portion followed by a longer-term portion. So one part happens sooner, one part happens later. For example, when Isaiah and Jeremiah prophesy about the coming destruction of Jerusalem, it was so that when it occurred, when the short-term prophecy took place, his readers would know that the longer-term prophecies were sure to take place. Prophecies like the virgin birth, the new covenant, the massacre of the innocents, that he'll be pierced for our transgressions, etc. And there's many more. So the purpose of this video is, if you recall, as I mentioned above, I was given 2 chapters. I believe 2 Chronicles 13 is representative of what we're going through now, and 2 Chronicles 14 is representative of what is coming. And God willing, in a future video that I'll be doing, I'll give you what I believe is the correct interpretation of chapter 14 as it relates to future events. That's the purpose of this video. So where do we go from here? Last time, like I said, I tried to convey this on social media, and to different people it got 0 likes, 0 shares, which I completely understand because it was so seemingly unlikely. Now that it's played out in exacting details right before your very eyes, I ask only one thing: that you share this. Share it on social media. Share it with your friends. Share it with your enemies. Because if the short-term prediction played out in such a precise manner, the implication is that the long-term prediction will as well. So make sure you watch the next video where I'm going to discuss that. God bless, and thank you for your time.